Our story begins in a mansion belonging to a renowned family named Yi. We see a young man sitting on a staircase, reflecting on his current situation. His name is Xiu Zian, and in fact, he is not the owner of this body, but rather someone who passed away in the modern world and was reincarnated in the body of this young man who, coincidentally, is also named Xiu Zian. This young man is the illegitimate son of the Yi family leader. He grew up without a mother, and because of his weak and cowardly personality, even the family leader looked upon him with disappointment. Amidst these thoughts, a hand touches his shoulder. This man arrives already cursing, asking what he was doing there and if he wasn't thinking about his mother, who was no longer with him. Soon others appear to mock him as well. They tease Xiu Zian, saying that his mother must be some random woman off the street, or perhaps even one of those who came from brothels. Xiu Zian, even surrounded, then orders them to shut up. The men find it strange. They even wonder if they heard correctly and if a coward like that really dared to insult them like that. Xiu Zian looks directly at them and says that they didn't mishear and that they should pay attention to his mouth, because he's going to repeat it again so they can hear it. Then, with all the calm in the world, he tells them to shut the hell up. This makes one of the men extremely angry. He grabs the protagonist by the clothes and asks if he's so eager for a lesson. Xiu Zian would love to fight him, but thinks he's still too weak for that. Luckily, they are interrupted by someone who asks what they think they are doing. The men turned to look and saw that it was a woman carrying a basket in her hands. She says that Xiu Zian is still the son of the family leader and that if they continue bullying him, she will tell the madam everything. We also see that her name is Yi Qifeng. She is 16 years old and possesses cultivation skills. Seeing that it had caused them trouble, one of the men warned that she was a trainee cook and that the head of the clan really liked her food, so it was best not to cause any problems with her. The man then throws Xiu Zian away and says that it's best not to meet outside the palace, or they'll beat him up every time they see each other. After they leave, Qifeng extends his hand to the protagonist, asking if he is all right. At that moment, Xiu Zian begins to recall the residual memories of the owner of the body in which he has reincarnated. He realizes that she is one of the few people in the palace who sympathizes with him, perhaps because she also has a low status, since she works in the kitchen. Xiu Zian then reaches out to help himself up. But when he touches the girl's hand, something strange happens. He receives a message from the system saying that the disciples system has been activated. The protagonist isn't bothered by this, since, having reincarnated, a status screen appearing wasn't that unusual for him, it was even expected. This screen says that he has gained the ability to recruit female disciples to perform daily tasks. From now on, he and they will gain experience points as they learn new things, and as they rank up, he will unlock more slots to acquire new disciples. He's currently only at level 1, so he only has one slot, but he finds it interesting how even normal leisure tasks can help him level up. Qifeng apparently can't see the screen in front of the protagonist and asks what he's doing standing there, staring into space for so long. Realizing that Qifeng could be a disciple, he asks her directly, out of the blue, if she wants to be his disciple. She tells him to stop saying such strange things, since, in their situation, it's not even possible to tell for sure who is whose disciple. But if it makes him feel better, she says yes, without any pretension whatsoever. Qifeng then bids him farewell and says he's going back to work now. What she didn't know was that this was enough for the system, and now she had been registered as a new disciple of Xiu Zian. On the status screen, it shows that her skill is cooking, and because of this connection with her, Xiu Zian's reward is that her spiritual roots have been activated. And now, every time Qifeng makes scrambled eggs, he will receive experience points. In the palace kitchen, Qifeng is cooking eggs and taking them to one of her fellow servants. Xiu Zian watches the girl and notices that with each step she takes, he gains experience points. We can see that Qifeng's routine is very busy. One of her colleagues comments to the boss that she thinks the girl is very stupid for cooking for 3 people and only getting paid for one of them. But the boss says to let that idiot work because, at least that way, they wouldn't have to lift a finger in the kitchen and they'd still get paid for it. The girl cooks so well that she even levels up, which makes Xiu Zian very happy, saying that if she wants, she can even cook for the whole city. As a reward for leveling up, Xiu Zian receives a list of leisure skills to choose from, and explains that in that world, any skill not focused on direct combat is considered a leisure skill. He then decides to pick a random skill and ends up receiving the fisherman's skill. Xiu Zian starts fishing and realizes it's turning out to be more boring than he imagined. He needs to catch a fish to gain experience, but he's been fishing for half a day already and hasn't caught anything yet. As soon as he complained, he felt a tug on his fishing rod and realized he had finally caught a fish. He pulls with all his might to catch the animal, but just as he is about to do so, he is distracted by someone shouting for help. Xiu Zian wonders who could be asking for help at a time like that and decides to look for them. The scene then cuts to one of the mansion's rooms, and we see Qifeng being thrown against the wall with great force. She asks what they are doing, and the men, who are the same ones who attacked the protagonist before, reply that she will pay for meddling in matters that didn't concern her, and that night she will pay dearly. One of the men tries to restrain the girl, but is interrupted when he receives a direct kick to the face. The blow is so strong that it sends the man flying towards the window, smashing everything in his path. We then see that it was Xiu Zian himself who delivered the kick, and one of the henchmen asks how he dares to hit their boss with such a surprise attack. We discover that the boss's name was Yijia. Xiu Zian simply ignores it, realizing that now that he's leveled up, his kick has become stronger than he imagined. Even his legs have felt much lighter. The henchman who was ignored gets angry and lunges at the protagonist, saying that he will regret not taking them seriously. But now Xiu Zian has evolved. He quickly escapes the attack, leaving the henchman confused and unable to understand where he went. Xiu Zian appears behind the man, but continues to ignore him. The protagonist can only think about how even his movements have become faster. Meanwhile, another henchman appears behind the protagonist and orders his brother not to hold back and to attack Xiu Zian with everything he has, regardless of whether he is the clan leader's son or not. The two henchman brothers team up to try and attack the protagonist from two different sides, thinking that this way he wouldn't be able to escape. But Xiu Zian simply moves back slightly, dodging the attack and causing the two brothers to collide without understanding what just happened. The protagonist then seizes this opportunity to land a direct hit on their scrambled eggs, just to give them a piece of his mind. After suffering this humiliation, the two men give up and flee, but not before saying that Xiu Zian will regret it when they return. Qifeng then asks if he really was Xiu Zian, since there was no way someone like him, who in her opinion hadn't even awakened his spiritual roots, could defeat those guys who already possessed advanced cultivation skills. She asks how he managed to get so strong in less than a day, until she realizes what happened. The girl remembers the moment when Xiu Zian asked her to become his disciple and realizes that he had already awakened her spiritual roots. This meant that technically he was now her superior, according to the palace hierarchy. Therefore, she bowed and called him master, apologizing for her behavior in the mansion, and for him having gone to the trouble of saving her. But Xiu Zian extends his hand to her and asks her to stand up, saying that she was the one who helped him first back at the mansion, when those guys were beating him. They begin to talk, and she explains to the protagonist that people born without a spiritual root could never awaken one for the rest of their lives. Or at least that's how it worked in Longyuan throughout the country's history. But on that day he had managed to break that rule. And if his family found out that he, who had previously been a 20-year-old failure who still hadn't managed to get married, had unleashed his spiritual roots, they would surely start treating him better. Xiu Zian thanks the girl for her, in quotes, compliment, and the two then walk back to the mansion. Upon entering, they are greeted by a butler named Zheng. He is furious with them and the trouble they caused, saying that even if Qifeng has the madam's approval, it doesn't mean he can't punish them both if necessary. Xiu Zian grabs the man's hand and asks who gave him permission to mistreat her disciple. He squeezes so hard that Zhang starts begging him to stop, because he's going to break his arm. At that moment, a woman appears with her servants. She asks how Zhu dares not only to cause trouble outside the mansion, but also to hurt his butler. We see that her name is Liu Shi, and she is the second madam of the Yi mansion, accompanied by one of the henchmen that the protagonist had defeated. Zhu Ziyan asked if she couldn't be a little more rational, since the servants were bullying a defenseless girl and now the butler was also causing trouble. So he just gave him a light handshake. Liu Shi asks how he dares to speak to someone like her like that. And then we hear a voice saying that she shouldn't waste her time with someone like him, that she should kick him out of the mansion immediately. The butler immediately bows to this person, addressing him as the second young master. His name is Yi Ba, and he says that a useless person like Zhu Ziyan wandering around the mansion always bothered him, even more so now that he was hurting his servants. Yi Ba says it's best to expel them immediately, but Liu Shi replies that for now, they will only have their salaries reduced for the next 3 months and wait until the family leader returns to decide what to do with the two of them. Zhu Ziyan and Qifeng leave while the butler says they were lucky and that he has no idea how a virgin like him suddenly became so strong. Yi Ba asks his mother why they let those two leave so easily, knowing they would never let anyone treat them like that. Furthermore, the servant said that Zhu Ziyan had awakened, and if the head of the family found out, the balance of power would be turned upside down instantly. Liu Shi says it's impossible that a useless person like him could have awakened. He must have just learned some combat techniques and caught some low-ranking guards off guard, so there was nothing to worry about. The scene then cuts to the following morning. In it, we see several servants at the kitchen door, completely bewildered by what is happening. One of them explains that Qifeng simply decided that she would prepare everyone's meals at the palace that day on her own, and they say she is very arrogant and is asking for trouble. But inside the kitchen, we see that the girl has become an even more skilled cook. She cooks so fast that she's even developed a murderous look and intent, which leaves the other servants completely shocked. They wondered if it was really just cooking or something more, because the way she was acting, they themselves might end up in the pot. Meanwhile, Zhu Ziyan is in his room, lying down, enjoying the meals prepared by Qifeng. He is literally sleeping while she farms for the two of them. Therefore, both she and the protagonist level up once again. The system screen indicates that he has reached a higher level, granting him an additional disciple slot should he find another, and granting him the ability to gain attributes and new skills by eating certain foods. This ability is called Steel Stomach and takes an hour to recharge after being used. Zhu Ziyan then decides to go out for a bit and heads to a bookstore. Upon arriving, the vendor recognizes him as the young master and asks what brought him to his humble shop. Zhu Ziyan explains that he is looking for a book containing their strongest technique. The vendor finds it strange and wonders what possessed someone with no martial arts talent to come to him asking for a technique. The salesman then asks his assistant, a young woman named Liu Yunshu, to fetch a beginner-level book for him. She obeys and brings a book of techniques for beginners, but this does not satisfy Zhu Ziyan. He says he requested a book containing their most powerful techniques. Yunshu says that if someone like him can master those basic techniques in less than 5 years, he should consider himself lucky. It is at this moment that Zhu Ziyan pulls out his most powerful weapon, money, and places 3 silver coins on the table. The salesman's attitude automatically changes, and he scolds his assistant, telling her she shouldn't speak to the young master that way, and states that he will show him the most powerful technique they possess. Yunshu, having no choice, goes and gets the book, but says he has never seen anyone so dedicated and so incompetent at the same time. She hands the book to the protagonist and tells him that if he manages to master this technique before the end of his life, he should come back and see her, that is, if she is still alive as well. She even claims that if he succeeds, she will plant banana trees while washing her hair in the middle of the street for everyone to see. Zhu Ziyan says it's best if she keeps her word, since the vendor is a witness to their bet, and she agrees. The protagonist then says that she won't need to wait, because they're going to resolve it right there and then. He then takes the scroll and eats it all at once, as if it were nothing. Yunshu and the vendor are obviously shocked by what they just saw, but the protagonist is completely calm In fact, he feels a little nauseous and starts to tremble, but soon the parchment's effect kicks in. He begins to emit an enormous aura, so strong that it spreads throughout the store. Xiu Zian is then propelled away with such a fast impulse that, at first, even he cannot keep up. But he quickly gets used to it and starts jumping around the city at high speed. After enjoying his newfound powers for a while, he returns to the store and stops in front of the shopkeeper. The man can hardly believe what he has just seen and says it would be easier to believe if his ancestors rose from the earth right in front of him. The protagonist had simply learned a technique that required years of training in just a few minutes. Seeing that they are facing a prodigy, the vendor and Yunshu have no choice but to admit that they lost the bet. The scene then cuts, and the salesman is trying to get the girl to do a handstand and wash her hair, but she seems quite annoyed. All of this was happening in front of a curious crowd, who commented amidst laughter that the girl had lost a bet and was now paying for it. The news spread quickly. Young Xiu Zian had learned a legendary technique in the blink of an eye. Speaking of him, the boy approached Yunshu and said he had seen enough, asking if she possessed any special skills or hobbies. The girl was surprised by the sudden question, but explained that although she wasn't good at martial arts, she enjoyed painting and writing. Xiu Zian replied that that was enough. He asked her to become his disciple, promising to forget the bet if she accepted. Yunshu was excited and wanted to know if he would teach her to fight. But Xiu Zian only said that she should continue dedicating herself to writing and painting, which confused her, making her think that this master was truly strange. Now with a new disciple, the young man decided to wait until she progressed. And to pass the time, he went for a walk in the forest while eating more books. He complained because the cooldown time of his steel stomach ability was too long, and he wanted it to be shorter so he could absorb more knowledge. Suddenly, a roar echoed, and a gigantic beast man surged forward behind him, lunging in a swift blow that seemed to strike him squarely. From a distance, it was clear that the monster was a demon sent by Yi Ba and one of his henchmen. The two were plotting how they would make the attack look like an accident, until Xiu Zian's voice sounded behind them, asking who had actually lost their life. The two recoiled in fright, unable to believe that the boy had survived an attack by a high-level demon and had even approached them unnoticed. The henchman asked if the young man truly lacked spiritual roots, because what he was doing was beyond what any beginner could accomplish. Xiu Zian, in turn, wanted to know if Yi Ba was involved in the previous drowning attempt, saying that if he was trying so hard to end his life, then he was the one seeking his own death. Seeing the situation spiraling out of control, the henchman charged at the young man, furious. Xiu Zian dodged the blows and commented that defeating someone of a high level would yield many experience points. The enemy replied that he shouldn't be so cocky, since he had only recently awakened. But all his attacks were blocked and returned in a powerful sequence that sent him flying. Fallen, the man accused Yi Ba of lying, saying that the boy was not a beginner, but a master with decades of practice. Xiu Zian merely observed, satisfied with the result, noting that the movements learned from books now flowed naturally. Desperate, the henchman tried to escape using a speed technique, but the young man appeared behind him in an instant. Asking where he thought he was going, he grabbed his head and forcefully slammed it against the ground, cracking the entire area. Paralyzed, the man pleaded for mercy, claiming to be a government official and warning that if he were killed, the boy would be in serious trouble. Xiu Zian pretended to accept the argument and walked away, letting his enemy believe he had escaped. But he soon returned, holding the claw of the defeated demon. The man tried to argue again, but the young man replied that someone who allies himself with a coward like Yi Ba and plans to unleash a demon against a traveler did not deserve forgiveness. He further said that if the plan was to stage an accident, he would do the same. He would use his claws to simulate that they both died in the creature's attack. When the man shouted for him to wait, the scene changed to the Yi mansion. There, Yi Ba was terrified and recounting everything to his mother, while Xiu Zian passed by the window, casting a silent, warning glance at him. Liu Shi reprimanded his son and revealed that he had stolen Xiu Zian's spiritual roots when they were children, but had squandered that power through laziness and arrogance. Even so, Yi Ba stated that he had already reported his rival to the authorities, believing he would soon be arrested. However, his mother explained that he had been deceived. The Demon Hunter Division confirmed that the henchman's body was covered in claw marks, proving that he had been killed by a beast. There was nothing left to incriminate Xiu Ziyan. Aware of the danger he represented, Liu Shi stated that they needed to find a way to eliminate him before he became more powerful than any of the palace guards. Meanwhile, the young man prepared a basin full of fish and began to cheat the system. He had discovered that he gained fishing experience simply by fishing, regardless of the origin of the fish. Thus, he caught the same animals repeatedly and accumulated endless experience. Yi Ba's informants told him everything, and the frustrated prince couldn't understand how someone who spent his days fishing could get stronger and stronger. Xiu Ziyan, on the other hand, was pleased to see his level rise once more. The system informed him that he would now receive fish with special abilities, but the basin would no longer yield experience. At that moment, he received a letter. He found it strange, as he never received anything, and thought it might be from an admirer. But upon opening it, he saw it was a message from the Demon Slayer Division. He laughed, convinced that Yi Ba and his mother were once again behind it, and he could already imagine the amount of experience he would gain fighting them. Later, Qifeng wanted to know why Xiu Ziyan remained so calm, even knowing that the Demon Suppression Division was coming after him. She commented that it would be a good opportunity for him to train. But Xiu Ziyan replied that, due to his position within the family, nothing good ever came for free. While speaking, he kept fiddling with the invisible selection screen in front of his eyes, which made Qifeng ask why he kept raising his finger, talking to himself, as if he were manipulating something she couldn't see. Xiu Ziyan simply smiled, without giving any explanation. He said he had no idea what kind of opponents he would encounter in the division, and therefore needed to prepare as much as possible before it was too late. At that moment, a notification appeared on Qifeng's status screen. She had leveled up and unlocked a new skill called Exotic Cook. The description indicated that the food she prepared could grant increases in attack, defense, and speed to those who consumed it. He immediately understood that it was a skill point, necessary to teach the new technique to his disciple. Somewhat awkwardly, he held the sphere with his finger and hesitantly touched it to Qifeng's forehead. As soon as the point of light disappeared, Qifeng recoiled in surprise. "Why did you do that? Did you decide to poke me out of nowhere?" she asked, confused. Before he could answer, her eyes began to glow blue, and various recipes started sprouting in her mind as if they had always been there. Feeling overcome by a sudden inspiration, she exclaimed that she needed to cook everything before she forgot. She ran off, leaving Xiu Ziyan laughing to himself. Meanwhile, Yunshu had also leveled up. Her new skill allowed her to create magical scrolls that granted special powers to whoever read them among them. One that enabled camouflage in the environment. Xiu Ziyan observed the disciples' progress with satisfaction, impressed by how quickly they evolved. Furthermore, he himself had unlocked a new function called Subsystem, which allowed the disciples to store their creations in a shared inventory, accessible to him at any time. A few days later, the time came to report to the Demon Slayer Division. Xiu Ziyan bid farewell to his disciples, advising them to return to their routine duties. Both asked him to be careful during the journey. Yunshu, curious, commented that she found it strange that he was leaving empty-handed, since they had prepared so many things for him to take. But Qifeng replied that everything was fine, as the master had said he had stored everything in a special barrel. She didn't quite understand what that meant, but added that, according to him, they could also store their own items there if they wished. After the farewell, the narrative shifts to the headquarters of the Demon Suppression Division. Xiu Ziyan arrives and discovers that the letter he received was actually a letter of recommendation. The gate guard asks him to present it, and upon reading it, his expression changes completely. As soon as the name Xiu Ziyan is mentioned, the guard lets slip a perceptible murderous intent. The protagonist senses the hostility in the air and hears the murmurs around him. They said he had eliminated Shen and still had the audacity to show up there, that he wouldn't leave that place alive. Soon after, a young man with spiky hair approached, carrying a sword. The hunters called him Young Master Lion. Xiu Ziyan asked who he was, and everyone seemed astonished by his ignorance. One of those present, named Wu Chengjin, explained that this young man was the young master of the Lion family, a prodigy who had risen in rank at the young age of 16. Zhu Ziyan found Chengjin's description of the boy curious, thinking to himself that it sounded like the synopsis of a fantasy novel. Of course, the other didn't understand the comment. Before Lion finished boasting about his family's reputation, a new warrior appeared beside him. Chengjin introduced him as Kayan, one of the most promising rookies, who had defeated a gigantic demon and taken its spiritual core. Lion was annoyed at being interrupted, but preferred not to start a confrontation there. Kayan, confident, stated that none of the other rookies compared to him, and that if he obtained another demonic core, he would guarantee his advancement to the next level. However, before he could continue, a huge shadow fell over the area. A bald, muscular man appeared behind him, wielding a staff with a steel ball at the end. In a deep voice, he ordered Kayan to get out of the way. The bully from before paled and obeyed without arguing. Zhu Ziyan asked who that giant was, and Chengjin explained that he came from the Northern Giant Spirit Mansion, the most talented disciple of the last decade, with a real chance of achieving the title of Ranking 2 Realm. The previous year, he had single-handedly defeated several demons of that level. But suddenly, a murmur ran through the field. Lady Zhao has arrived. The atmosphere changed instantly. The sound of firm footsteps echoed, accompanied by an aura that made even the most powerful tremble. Zhu Ziyan felt a shiver run down his spine. The presence was suffocating, as if the air had become too thick to breathe. Even Kayan, who had previously boasted, whispered that he would rather go home. From the shadows emerged the figure of a woman riding a gigantic white tiger, a level 3 demon. Her name was Zhao Yuhui, heiress to the Zhao family's demon control bloodline and a level 2 hunter. Many of the nearby students and hunters recoiled in terror, thinking it was a wild beast out of control. The tiger walked towards the bald man, who, unable to react, simply backed away. As the animal passed, the warrior collapsed to the ground, still in shock. Zhu Ziyan observed the scene and realized that the demon he had faced in the past was nothing compared to this one. If that creature were set free, not even the entire barracks would be able to contain it without heavy losses. Curious, he asked who exactly the Zhao family was. Chengjin explained that they were known for a unique bloodline, the demon control spiritual blood capable of dominating almost any beast in existence. It was said that the family patriarch rode a phoenix inside the caves of level 10 demons. Over time, rumors spread that the lineage's power had weakened. But Yuhui's emergence disproved everything. She had inherited the spiritual blood in its purest form, becoming a genius who only appears once a century. Chengjin concluded by saying that she was the most likely successor to the family and commented dreamily that if he could ever marry someone like that, he would be sure he was dreaming while awake. The scene then shifts to the entrance where the division's admission tests would be held. The place was teeming with applicants, and several passages led to caves guarded by large statues. Chengjin explained that those sculptures served as seals, preventing the demons from escaping. Zhu Ziyan observed and asked if this was a world where humans, demons, and immortals could coexist. His companion didn't understand the term, but replied that conflict between humans and demons was constant, and that immortals were rarely seen there. Zhu Ziyan asks which cave he should enter, and Chengjin explains that normally one must seek out an official, who will assess their skills and determine their rank, thus assigning a specific cave. If the hunter is level 1, then they will be sent to the level 1 cave at least. That's what Zhu Ziyan imagined. When he asks his friend which cave the girl from the Zhao family chose, everyone is surprised to learn that she would go directly to a level 3 cave, one level above hers. Next, we see Zhao standing before the cave entrance, showing no sign of fear whatsoever. Two participants comment on how crazy it is to send someone to a cave above their own level. Zhu Ziyan is impressed, but Chengjin warns him not to waste time admiring her, as they wouldn't even cross paths with her in the level 1 caves where they were headed. However, the two are interrupted when an officer appears and announces that Zhu Ziyan has been assigned to the level 3 cave. Chengjin protests, saying it must be a mistake, since they were both only level 1. and sending him to a cave 2 levels above would practically be a death sentence. The officer draws his sword and asks if he truly intends to defy his orders, stating that a rookie who disobeys a member of the division is executed on the spot. Xiu Zian interrupts and asks his colleague not to cause any more trouble, agreeing to go to the cave. Seeing the commotion, the other participants comment that it was strange, and that the boy had probably offended someone in the division to receive such punishment. Zhao observes and says that he is audacious for entering the same cave as her, given his low level. She adds that it would be best to send a letter to his family informing them that he has passed away. Inside the cave, a rat-like creature emerges wielding a huge sword. It claims to smell a human nearby, a weak, level 1 human, and orders the other demons to search for him. Meanwhile, Xiu Zian had already entered the cave and was using the camouflage scroll to avoid being seen. Even if the rats could smell him, as long as he constantly changed position, he could remain hidden. He used the time to eat all the dishes prepared by Qifang and stored in his inventory, since these meals increased his attributes. For 4 days, he dedicates himself to this, until his attributes attack, defense, and spiritual energy increase by 50%. With this advancement, Xiu Zian reaches cultivation level 2, and his female disciples also evolve, requiring higher ingredients and rankings to proceed. Because of this, the protagonist's farming needs to stop temporarily. He decides it's time to act alone, even though he knows he can't face the demons outside, as they were all level 2 or higher, and the risk would be fatal. The scene then cuts to 2 rats fighting each other, and we see that one of them was protecting Zhao. The attacking rat asks why the other would defend a human, but notices that its eyes are the same color as Zhao's. It wonders if she might be the human from the rumors capable of controlling demons. Before he could react, a sword struck him from behind, revealing that another rat was also under her control. After the blow, the allied rat retrieved the weapon, and a crowd of enemies appeared. Zhao was surprised by the sheer number, but removed the bandage from his left eye and declared that now they would all dance. Using her Imperial Joy Slaughter dance technique, she dominates the rats' minds, forcing them to desperately attack each other until none remain standing. She then comments that dealing with level 2 demons was far too easy. She didn't even break a sweat defeating them. At that moment, a voice echoes, challenging her to test her skills against the blind rat brothers. 2 giant rats emerge behind her, classified as mini-bosses. They move at absurd speed and ask what she thinks of their skill with their feet, one of the most feared among the level 2 demons. Zhao attempts to control their minds as he had done before, but one of them warns that his powers wouldn't work because they were blind. The brothers attack and land a direct hit, and one of them emerges holding the huntress's head, mocking her reputation as a genius. He asks his brother if he agrees, but at that moment, Zhao reappears unharmed, asking if he truly believed he had won. The rat realizes, horrified, that the head it was holding wasn't its own, but its brother's. Confused, it doesn't understand how it was able to attack him. Zhao then stares at it and asks if it thought that just because it was blind it could escape a technique perfected over 1,000 years. Enraged, the rat lunges forward, striking her repeatedly with its sharp claws. It roars that even with this power, if it's fast enough, it can kill her before she activates anything. Zhao, however, coldly replies that he already said that would be useless. In a sudden cut, the rat is seen torn to pieces, and Zhao holds his brother's sword in her hands, demonstrating that she was the one who easily defeated him. After the fight, she continues exploring the cave until she reaches a large lake surrounded by water lilies. At the end of this area, she encounters a level 3 demon Lord Wolf, leader of the rats. He asks if she was the one who defeated his subordinates and acknowledges the young woman's title as the genius who emerges once a century. However, he states that the person the division ordered killed should have been a man, not her. Zhao, surprised, asks if the division really ordered him to kill someone, and says he didn't expect them to go to such extremes. The Wolf Lord interrupts and declares that, regardless of who it is, killing is still killing. He raises his spear, concentrates his energy, and challenges Zhao to show what he is capable of. The huntress removes the blindfold from one eye and asserts that she has always been good at defeating demons stronger than herself, assuring him that he would soon be on his knees, calling her queen. The wolf scoffs and, in an instant, lunges forward with his spear. The blow almost hits her, but a turtle-shaped demon appears and takes the attack in her place. Even so, the blade slightly tears Zhao's neck, who retreats to keep her distance. If it weren't for the automatic substitution system, which swaps places with a demon upon suffering a fatal blow, she would have been defeated. Despite this, for some reason, she is unable to activate her control power. With no alternative, she completely removes the blindfold and summons the giant tiger she was riding before. The creature emerges and, in the blink of an eye, charges with full force against Lord Wolf. The enemy manages to dodge the attack and praises her, saying that the other level 2 hunters would have already been defeated by this point, and that she was still able to summon a spirit 1 level above her own. The white tiger shifts into its human form and leaps in front of her to block the blow. A huge explosion occurs, and Lord Wolf emerges, still holding his spear. He praises the tiger for being able to keep up with his speed even in human form. Among all the non-leader demons he has encountered, he recognizes the tiger as the strongest so far. The two continue to exchange blows fiercely, making it difficult to follow their movements. Then Lobo says that the warm-up is over and that now it's time to take the fight seriously. He launches his deadly attack, the Shadow of the Serpent, splitting his weapon into 3 blades that advance against his opponent like snakes striking. The tiger tries to resist the technique and gets close enough to almost strike Lord Wolf with its claws. But the snakes end up immobilizing the tiger, and Lord Wolf finishes it off, tearing it apart with his blades. Zhao realizes that his strongest warrior has been defeated and has no choice but to flee. As she runs, she says it's a complete disgrace that someone from a family like hers has to escape like that. But since her control abilities don't work against that opponent, she knows she has no chance of winning. And with the strongest one defeated, it wouldn't make sense to summon weaker demons now. The wolf doesn't intend to let her escape so easily. He asks where she thinks she's going, since she was the one who said he would kneel before her after the fight. The enemy charges forward, yelling for her to prepare to die. But before his spear could reach her, a huge carapace fell in front of her, blocking the attack. The wolf recognizes the carapace of a demon fish with steel scales, which he had left at the west entrance of the cave. He wonders if there is another expert among the hunters, and then Zhu Ziyan appears at the cave entrance. The protagonist appears as a simple fisherman, but carries a spear and a huge bag. The scene cuts outside the cave. A crowd watches as someone emerges from one of the entrances. Zhao appears, and everyone is impressed, saying they never doubted she would pass the test easily, stating that Zhu Ziyan wouldn't be a problem for her inside. Since no one sees the protagonist leaving, the officers begin to celebrate, saying that the plan to eliminate him was a success and that no one faces the hunter division and comes out alive. But then Zhao kneels and welcomes Master Zhu Ziyan and his triumphant return. The officers were completely bewildered and asked why the proud Miss Zhao was kneeling like that, and why she was calling him master. Suddenly, a terrifying aura emerges from the cave, and everyone wonders whose it could be, fearing it might be another demon escaping. Then, Lord Wolf's face appears, frightening all the officers, who are already preparing to fight or flee. One of them calls for reinforcements, but then they realize it was just Zhu Ziyan wearing the wolf mask. He had simply forgotten to take it off. Zhao remains kneeling and asks when her disciple will begin training. The officers were paralyzed, unable to believe both Zhao's reverence and the fact that Zhu Ziyan had emerged alive from the cave. One of the guards wonders what kind of dark magic he used to convince Zhao to escort him safely, and draws his sword to attack him. But the scene returns to the fight against Lord Wolf. Zhao watches the intense combat between Zhu Ziyan and the wolf and wonders if he's really only at level 1. Zhu Ziyan fought on equal terms with the creature, blocking every blow from the serpent sword's blades. Lord Wolf praises him, saying that he has great skills and that the division had stated that the protagonist was level 1. But now even he doesn't believe that anymore. Then he suggests they end the fight quickly, going straight for the final blow. Zhao comments that this is the technique that defeated his tiger demon, and that, even though it's level 3, anyone hit by it rarely escapes unscathed. Xiu Ziyan uses the shell of one of Wolf's subordinates, the turtle that Zhao had previously used as a shield to block the spear attack. The protagonist leaps out of reach and charges at the wolf, striking it with his spear, and the two weapons collide. The wolf praises him again, saying that he is the first rookie capable of facing him as an equal and surviving the special attack. But Xiu Ziyan corrects him, asking if he really thinks they're still on the same level, and says he didn't spend the last 7 days training just to draw. Then the young man focuses his energy on the sword, demonstrating that he has far surpassed the level of that demon. One of the spear's blades flies towards him, but he intercepts it with his sword, shattering it into pieces. Next, the boy strikes the wolf with a direct blow, throwing him against the wall and destroying everything in his path. Lord Wolf, stunned, asks who he is and how a novice managed to defeat him so easily. Xiu Ziyan responds with a punch to the face and says that he is just a simple and peaceful fisherman. But something strange happens. The blow was so strong that part of the wolf's face flies off. Zhao realizes that it was a mask, meaning he wasn't a real demon. Xiu Ziyan then points the spear and asks if he is truly human, finally revealing the face beneath the mask. The protagonist asks why he was pretending to be a demon inside that cave. The man reveals that he was an officer in the Demon Hunter Division. Obsessed with cultivation, he stole the technique from a librarian and became a fugitive. That's why he had to hide in the cave, disguised as a monster, to avoid being captured. Xiu Ziyan asks which technique he stole and orders him to hand it over immediately. The man begins to break down and says that, since he is dying, and Xiu Ziyan receives the Wolf Lord's staff, which is an ordinary staff, but can be used to hit someone on the head. The most important thing is that he receives the cultivation technique, the art of transformation, which allows the user to assume any form. The higher the cultivation level, the more forms they can adopt. Having leveled up, Xiu Ziyan also gains a new ability of her own. She can summon her disciples to her location, but she needs to wait an hour for the ability to recharge. In addition, he gains an ability called Perception, which gives him the power to predict the next attack of an enemy. Ignoring the girl's warnings, Xiu Ziyan simply devours the book containing the technique, so that his ability to steal stomach so that it can absorb the knowledge. Xiu Ziyan casts a lingering glance at Zhao, which makes her uncomfortable, thinking he's contemplating something indecent. But then he activates his new transformation ability and suddenly appears identical to her. Zhao is surprised, as the transformation happens in the blink of an eye. Xiu Ziyan comments that he has grown taller than her, but that some parts of his body have become smaller than they were originally. Zhao Yuhui becomes extremely embarrassed upon hearing that and hits the protagonist with a direct slap across the face. She yells, saying that his ugly face doesn't suit her, and we see Xiu Ziyan's face reappear as soon as he gets slapped. Apparently, if he loses focus, his spiritual energy leaks out and part of the transformation is undone. Despite the failure, he says that it doesn't matter now and asks Zhao Yuhui if she can truly control demons. The girl confirms, and he asks if she wouldn't like to become his disciple. She replies that he's asking too much, and that even though he was lucky to have saved her life, her family is too important to accept something like that. But then Xiu Ziyan asks if she would like to summon a phoenix, which immediately catches her attention and makes her stop walking. The story then cuts once more, now to the past, before they enter the cave for the first time. Xiu Ziyan asks Chengjin why the Zhao Yuhui family remains dissatisfied with the heiress, given that she is already considered a genius. Chengjin explains that the Zhao family has high expectations, and the greatest of all is that Yuhui will be able to summon a phoenix before she turns 20. Back in the present, inside the cave, Zhao asks if he has any idea what he just said. Even if you mastered the art of transformation in the blink of an eye, you can't go around talking about summoning a phoenix as if it were something simple. There are 3 conditions to summon a phoenix: inheriting the family lineage, reaching rank 10, and defeating a phoenix in the immortal plane. Zhu Ziyan says she won't need any of that. She just needs to become his disciple, and he will help her raise a chick until it transforms into a phoenix. He admits that it would be impossible to reach level 10 in 2 years, but states that, with his help, she would have a chance. This leaves her in doubt. Zhao begins to think about the unbelievable things the protagonist has done before her eyes, like rising to rank 3 in such a short time or mastering a technique simply by swallowing a book. She wonders whether she should bet on Zhu Ziyan's ideas. But, as we saw before, she ends up accepting his proposal. The scene cuts again, after the test. When the two escaped from the cave, Zhao says goodbye, stating that he will return home to report everything to his family and begin his training. Back at the Yi family mansion, the prince complains to his mother about Zhu Ziyan surviving once again. He claims he must have received help from Zhao Yuhui, which frustrates him, since his father had tried to unite the two in marriage before, but the Zhao family refused. Madame says there's no reason to worry yet, as Zhu Ziyan remains on level 3. The same level as the mansion guards. He wouldn't be crazy enough to try to escape or start a rebellion. Yi Ba, impatient, says they can't keep waiting until he gets stronger. The queen devises a plan to poison the protagonist, mixing the poison into his food and feeding the remains of his body to worms. Yi Ba thinks the plan is excellent and, before executing it, suggests that they capture Qifeng and kill her in front of the protagonist to make him suffer even more. Their conversation is interrupted when a small insect lands on Madame's neck. The woman tries to scare him away, but it's too late. The insect bites your skin, and it begins to melt, as if losing all the body's fluids. The woman falls to the ground, leaving the prince in shock. The mosquito swoops down on the boy, who can only stand still, confused and terrified, while screaming for help. The scene shifts to outside the palace, where some servants are reading a warning sign. The sign states that Yi Ba and his mother were killed by demonic mosquitoes, and therefore the entire city has gone into lockdown for fear of an infestation. Luckily, the protagonist, now going by the name Yi Ziyan, survived, as he was on a mission for the Demon Slayer division. A crowd gathers and comments on Yi Ziyan's rapid rise in the division, as well as the fact that a member of the Zhao family called him master. Yunshu observes everything from afar and reports to Yi Ziyan using a new ability that allows remote communication through his drawings and notes. Yi Ziyan responds by saying that she can ignore all the rumors that are spreading rapidly and adds that she sent some bamboo for her to make paper. The system informs him that, from now on, his female disciples will only gain experience by completing specific tasks. Yunshu must record the movements of enemy demons in his scrolls, and Qifeng must use fire magic when cooking. Yi Ziyan knows very well that he can't send them into battle to complete these tasks, so he'll need to integrate their practices into his own tasks from now on. Speaking of the protagonist's tasks and missions, he receives a new mission from the system, stating that some residents of the nearby village, Tier Village, are simply freezing out of nowhere and dying of exhaustion, so he needs to investigate the cause of this. Yi Ziyan then jumps and transforms into a bird to go towards the place. Upon arriving at the village, the guards stop him at the gate, asking him what his intentions are there. Yi Ziyan introduces himself and says he's from the Demon Slayer division. He even showed them his badge. Upon seeing the badge, the guards allow him to pass and guide him into the village. One of the guards explains that it all started 7 days ago, when the residents became paralyzed in the same spot and couldn't move, as if they were possessed. Observing the villagers standing there with a kind of golden aura surrounding them, Yi Ziyan tries to detect who cast that curse upon them, but he can't, so he assumes that the person who cast the spell must be stronger than him and on a higher level. Yi Ziyan tries to approach one of them, asking why they don't simply remove the spell, but the guard yells, telling him to stop, because the magic spreads through touch, so touching one of them would paralyze him as well. We see a young woman nearly fainting from exhaustion after standing for so long, with a paralyzed child beside her clutching her clothes. The guard continues and explains that any form of indirect contact, such as using a stick or throwing something at them to try to knock them down, also didn't work. The only thing that freed them from the spell was when they died of exhaustion. They had already tried bringing in other cultivators before, but none of them were able to help. And if things continued like this, the entire village would disappear. The guard concludes by saying that he will leave the rest for Yi Zion to investigate. The protagonist agrees and uses his abilities to summon Yunshu to him. The girl appears and asks him to at least warn her before summoning her next time, as he might end up calling her while he's in the bathroom, for example. He apologizes and explains the situation of the villagers to her, saying that they are under some kind of spell, and asks if she can analyze him. Yunshu then pulls out his brush and begins to set up a golden spell. With this magic, called Depict and Decipher, she is able to discover which spell was used. She explains that it's an immobilization technique, an advanced spell, but its effect depends on the user's level. The stronger the user, the longer the spell lasts. Furthermore, based on the analysis, the spellcaster must be in a temple on top of the mountains. Yi Zion says they'd better go there soon to find this conjurer. But Yunshu warns that even if they find him, they won't be able to defeat a higher level conjurer. She asks if he couldn't use the fish to level up, like he did last time. But Yi Zion says that now it's different. They can stop for a while to wait and train, but the villagers don't have that luxury of waiting. Once again, he transforms into an eagle and flies towards the mountaintops to find the conjurer. Along the way, the bird's eyes meet a monk training. He is a level 3 warrior and, in fact, appears to be just sweeping the floor. But when his eyes meet the protagonists, the monk casts an immobilization spell that instantly binds him. The fight begins between the two. Yi Zion tries to use the weapon he took from the Wolf Lord to try and hit the monk, but the attack doesn't even tickle him. The monk then kicks the weapon away and assumes a battle stance. He and the protagonist exchange a few more blows, with neither showing any signs of weakness. The monk praises Yi Zion, saying that his techniques are impressive and that he must have trained for decades. The protagonist doesn't respond, as he's still furious with the monk, who in turn says that martial arts are completely useless against him. The bald man then activates his immobilization technique, which causes Yi Zion to stop in midair with no control over his body. The monk then lands a direct attack against him, launching the protagonist far away and breaking several temple walls along the way, as if it were nothing. Yunshu asks, through her books, if the protagonist is alright, and he replies that, despite everything, he is. That attack was inevitable, and he asks her to use this information to try to analyze and copy the monk's technique. While he tries to buy time, he analyzes the magic's recharge time. The girl asks him to try to take the monk to a more open space so that she can copy his technique as quickly as possible. The monk finally arrives where Yi Zion is and says that now he will no longer have to suffer in that mortal world. He jumps on top of the protagonist, but quickly realizes that it was a pile of rocks that the protagonist used as camouflage. The monk notices this and senses Yi Zion's presence behind him. But thanks to the monk's iron body, he manages to withstand the attack. The two exchange a few more blows, and Yi Zion manages to send the monk crashing to the ground with a kick. The exchange continues between the two, and the monk doesn't seem to be very affected by the protagonist's blows. Then he uses his immobilization technique again and explains that martial arts alone won't be enough to defeat him. The monk then begins to charge a sphere of purple energy and says that he recognizes Yi Zion's strength, so he will no longer hold back. The protagonist laughs, and the monk asks how he can be laughing in a situation like this, where he is about to die. He uses his technique called Purple Thunder, and a gigantic burst of energy sends Yi Zion flying all over the temple. All that remains after the attack is a huge trail of destruction, with smoke everywhere. The monk stands there and says a prayer, bidding farewell to Yi Zion, until he senses an overwhelming presence coming from behind him again. And when he looks, he sees the same purple lightning bolts he just launched. But this time, it is Yi Zion who manages to copy the monk's technique and launches it squarely in his direction. The monk asks how on earth he is still alive and, to make matters worse, how he managed to use that technique that was his own. Was the monk really responsible for the technique that immobilized the village? And how did Yi Zion manage to copy his techniques so easily? More answers in the next video.